Hello everyone. Thank you for taking some time to watch our informational video about the Wausau School District's November 2020 referendum project. My name is Dr. Keith Hiltz. I'm the superintendent of the Wausau School District, and I'd like to share some information with you today, and then I've got some teammates of mine who are going to help me share this message with you, and I'll introduce them shortly. To start, we want to talk about why. Why are we asking the community to vote on a referendum? And there's two main reasons, and you'll hear some more a little later. The first is that we want every student, every staff member, every family to have a great school in which their children will be educated. This slide requires a little bit of explanation. It's called a Facility Condition Index Report. And basically, the lower the bar, the more ideal that school is. In other words, if you look at the school itself, the number of students it has to serve, the number of staff members, what would make that school ideal? And how close are we, really, to that school meeting that ideal condition? So for instance, G.D. Jones and Wausau East, Thomas Jefferson, Stettin, South Mountain, these schools, all these schools here, are very close to what we might call ideal. Whereas the schools on this end of the spectrum, John Marshall, Lincoln, Grant Elementary, Riverview, Franklin, they need more work. Whether it be heating and ventilation, whether it be safety and security, whether it's educational adequacy, there's something there that needs additional work. And so a big reason for this referendum is to improve the equity across our district and again give every student and staff member a great school in which to learn and to work. The second main reason why is that the Wisconsin legislature has made a conscious decision to allow local control to determine the funding of the local school districts. They've said it in words, and they've also showed it in their level of investment. And I want to be careful. This is not a complaint on the part of the school district. This is just a fact. This is the way that the legislature has chosen to proceed with their level of funding. And so what you're looking at here is a report from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it shows the level of funding, annual funding from Wisconsin and for the rest of the state. You can see here that this is from the dates of 2011 to 2018, and over that time period, the Wisconsin legislature has funded public schools at about 0.6% annually, for a cumulative total of about 4.3%, compared to 2.5% annually in the rest of the nation, for a total of 18.9%. So again, that's a conscious decision on the part of the legislature. So now we're asking the district, we're asking the community, would you be willing to fill in part of that gap and continue your level of funding at this time? So those are two of our main reasons why. So now let's talk a little bit about how this project was developed. And to do that, I would like to introduce our communications director, Mrs. Diana White.
Thank you, Dr. Hiltz. I'm here to talk a little bit now about how we got to this point. And what I want you to know is that this was not an overnight decision. This actually started back in 2014 when we did a comprehensive audit of our facilities. Now, underneath that, you'll see a timeline. So I'll walk you through that timeline. And it starts in spring of 2019 when we did our strategic planning. And I'll talk about that in just a second. If we fast forward to summer of 2019, we did our facilities planning, and that's where we assessed conditions at each facility with the help of an independent consultant. In the fall of 2019, we conducted community listening sessions and did surveys as well. In the winter of 2020, we reviewed our facility planning, and then we got our community engagement data and shared that with the school board. In the spring of 2019, we proposed our facilities plan to the school board and convened the community task force. And then in the summer of 2020, we surveyed the community and worked with the task force to develop that final plan. As I mentioned, I would talk a little bit more about our strategic plan, Whole Child, Whole Wausau, and that's what you're looking at on your screen. There are 5 strands as part of that: wellness, achievement, people, resources, and service. Now, all 5 of those strands fit into this referendum, and you can actually learn more about the strategic plan on our website, wausauschools.org. And then I want to talk a little bit about the community feedback that we got. And you can see it on your screen, but I'll walk you through some of the key points here. 76% supported safety and security upgrades to our facilities. 77% supported infrastructure repairs. 74% supported technology upgrades. 72% supported learning space improvements. 66% supported classroom additions, and 65% supported expanding pupil services spaces. So how did we get our input? Well, there were a variety of ways, and in 2015, we actually mailed a survey to every household within our school district. We got more than 5,000 responses there. We also do annual school perception surveys, and those look at everything from the programs that we offer to our facilities as well. We did online discussions through a platform called Thought Exchange, especially during the pandemic. That was a great way to engage our community. And we also did a series of phone surveys as well. So to talk a little bit more about in-person discussions, I'm going to bring back in Dr. Keith Hiltz.
Thank you, Diana. So as was mentioned, feedback has been collected over multiple years in multiple methods. And some of the most deep discussions really took part in person. Dozens of listening sessions when I first came to the district 2 years ago. That was in every school and across the community. Obviously at the school board meeting, those meetings are public, and there's some deep discussion about the referendum during those sessions. We had 10 ideation sessions that included roughly 200 staff and students. Those were multiple small group discussions that again explored what people were excited about, what they're concerned about, their hopes and dreams, and all this information came together to not only create our strategic plan, but now the referendum that supports the goals of that strategic plan. So let's just talk briefly about the what. We've talked about the why, we've talked about how the plan was developed. Let's just summarize the plan for you. As we mentioned, this is creating wonderful learning spaces for every student and every staff member. So at the elementary schools, you can see improved safety and infrastructure, modernized facilities. So for instance, right now we're standing in a room that's lit by fluorescent lights. We would like those to be LEDs. They're more efficient, and it creates a better work light for people. Any number of infrastructure improvements, again, from heating and ventilation to IT, really trying to touch every piece of the school that needs attention. Secured entrances. We do have secured entrances, but there are better designs now, and we want to make sure every school is as safe and secure as we can possibly make it. We also have a strong emphasis on our student services, both in the infrastructure and in our second referendum question that I'll speak about in just a moment. At our middle schools, we've been dedicated to what's called a house model. It keeps cohorts of students together with small teams of teachers, gives those students a very personal learning experience, and we're not currently able to do that, and so we need to remodel our middle schools in order to ensure that we can re-engage in that model house concept. At the high schools, we're just addressing critical needs. We're working on a new model. Here it's called an academy model, really designed to help students and families better engage with both employers and higher education. You'll hear more about that in the years to come. And lastly, district-wide, IT upgrades, and something that many people have expressed a lot of excitement about, and that is improving traffic flow and parking at a number of our schools. Before we embarked on this referendum project, we did engage in an enrollment or a population study, and that showed us that enrollment at 2 of our elementaries, Statine Elementary and South Mountain Elementary, are projected to increase. So we do have some additions planned there. Also, we have a goal of every elementary having a separate gymnasium and cafeteria so that the lunch schedule does not drive the academic schedule. That's projected to happen at Hawthorne, Maine Elementary, Rib Mountain, South Mountain, and Grant Elementary. And a little later we'll talk more about this, but we are proposing to merge Grant and Lincoln into a new elementary school on the current Grant site. We would then use the Lincoln site to repurpose for an expanded Montessori school, which currently serves up through 6th grade, would now serve 4K through 8. And of course, the beloved school forest, right? If you've been a student here, if your children go here, you know about the school forest and you know about the Red Lodge. It's been here since the 1940s. Wonderful building, but frankly, when the weather gets bad, sometimes it negatively impacts the kids' learning experiences. So we would like to work in cooperation with the school foundation and the community to build a new school forest environmental learning center. That was question 1. Question 2 is really focused on improving supports for students. One of the goals in our whole child, whole Wausau strategic plan is to have a full pupil service team at every elementary school. A full pupil service team includes a guidance counselor, school psychologist, a social worker, behavior intervention specialist, and a health aide. Currently, people in those positions are serving part-time for the most part, and we would like to have them dedicated to one school and the students and staff that work and learn there. To do that, we need about roughly 36 more staff, and at a cost of roughly $3 million annually. Something I haven't mentioned yet, and it's really another part of our why, and that is we can do both of these questions, if you approve them, without raising the tax levy. And to speak more to that, I'd like to introduce our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Bob Tess.
Thank you, Dr. Hiltz. So far you've heard a little bit about question number 1 and question number 2. I want to take a moment to share some of the financial details of question number 1 and question number 2. It's important to understand that this has been part of a board strategy for 3 years now. For 3 years, the board has been setting up our debt payment structure in anticipation of a referendum that we're right around 2020, 2021. It puts us in a fantastic position to use about $14.5 million of current debt that will be expiring after this year and replace it with borrowing for $155 million in bonds, if you approve, and $3 million in recurring revenue limit to replace the 14.5, and that's how we can do it with the mill rate and the levy staying exactly the same or maybe even going down a little bit. So question number 1, question number 2, financial impact to taxpayers should be 0. This is a slide with a lot of information on it. You can find this slide and all of this data on our website, but I want to point out some of the details that are noteworthy. Dr. Hiltz already talked about a new Grant elementary school or a new elementary school on Grant's site. That's a $26.7 million investment in a new school that would replace Lincoln and Grant Elementary School. Another one is our investment to Lincoln. The Lincoln building would be repurposed as a Montessori building, and that's an investment of $8.6 million. We also talked about the Environmental Learning Center at the school forest. If we find that one, Environmental Learning Center at the school forest, that's a $3.9 million investment. In addition to these new buildings, a lot of modernization, some heating and cooling, roofing, windows, updates, some cosmetic, a lot of things that help with the educational adequacy of all of our buildings to get them to move over to that left side of that graph that Dr. Hiltz showed earlier. A lot of the same information is on this one without the dollar amounts, just which buildings are being addressed with which different improvements. You'll see safety and security appears in all of them. Access to the buildings appears in all of them. You'll see many buildings are hit with dots all the way across the board. We can't deny the economic impact of spending $155 million in bonds locally. If you listen to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they estimate that for every $40 million or for every $1 million spent, it creates 20 quality, high-paying jobs in that year. And since we plan on spending about $40 million over 4 years, That economic impact could be 800 jobs locally each of the next 4 years. That can't be denied. When we spend that kind of money locally, it stimulates the economy. And we just want to capture that in this slide. I'm going to bring Dr. Hiltz back again to tell you more about some of the individual projects.
Thank you, Mr. Tess. So let's talk about how this project will benefit children in the community. I've used the word equity a lot. In our world, equity just means giving people what they need when they need it. In this case, we're talking about making sure every student and staff person has a wonderful school to work in and learn in. We want to improve the learning spaces in all schools, enhance security in all schools, additional mental health supports in all schools, and additional behavioral supports for every student. Additionally, we want to invite the community in, create these community rooms where parent-teacher organizations or other community groups have a space where they can come and do their work in the schools. Gives all students access to that same high-quality learning environment. This project, as Mr. Tess mentioned, invests $26 million in some of our poorest neighborhoods into a brand new elementary school. And again, improves that school forest experience for all students. Let's talk just a little bit about Lincoln and Grant, because that is one project that is a heavy investment and has drawn some attention. So this is just a map of our current elementary boundaries. And I'd like to draw your attention to this area right here in the middle of Wausau. We are proposing to merge Grant and Lincoln into one neighborhood school. You can see that the size is roughly the same as a G.D. Jones or a Jefferson. And this is now zoomed in. Currently, students in this box attend the Grant School, which is right here. Students in this box attend where this red triangle is. This is where we're proposing to put the Montessori school. When we spoke to the community, they talked about two things that were very important to them. Keep our neighborhood schools, minimize increases in transportation. We feel that this plan still accomplishes those community goals because right now students on north of Stewart who attend Lincoln get bused across Stewart. Students here in this area can walk or be driven by their parents to Lincoln. In this scenario, if this is one neighborhood school, now these students can walk to this school, and these students would be offered transportation or the opportunity to attend the same or an elementary school right within their immediate neighborhood. So we feel that really the transportation is relatively the same, and we are maintaining a neighborhood elementary school. Why Grant? In that first slide, you saw a number of schools that needed some significant work. Well, we can't afford to do all of them. We have to make some choices. And so in this case, Grant is our second oldest school. We are looking for an opportunity to create a modern school in the heart of our city. A 21st century school to support 21st century learning. And again, to build one school that can support those roughly 400 elementary students. Very similar to a Riverview or perhaps like a G.D. Jones. So that's really our project. That's the why. That's how it was developed. That's what we're asking. No tax impact. Why now? Some people are thinking that during a pandemic is not the best time because it's hard to reach people. And we agree. As you could see, we used a variety of methods to try and get input from people. It was not easy. And we did not hear from everyone we wanted to hear from. However, with that being a reason not to have a referendum, here are some reasons that we want to offer this opportunity to the community. We are expecting 90% voter turnout for this election in November. We want to hear the community's voice. High contractor interest. Because a number of public and private projects are being canceled, this would offer an opportunity for our contractors to get back to work. Mr. Tess talked about our expiring debt and how we don't have to raise taxes to do this. Couple that with really low interest rates, this is a wonderful time for the community to continue their investment in our schools. That's the reason we did not want to take your opportunity to tell us what you thought about this project and put it off until after the pandemic. Because of these reasons, we wanted to ask you, do you agree to continue your investment for these reasons? Take just a few minutes to give some highlights of some of the projects that are going on at each of the schools. These are just in alphabetical order. You can look at these at your leisure on the website, but you can, as you look at them, what you'll notice is there's some green areas, those are additions. Blue areas are renovations, and you'll see a number of areas that have new parking or new traffic flow designs and new playgrounds at the elementary. Here's G.D. Jones, beautiful school. It just needs some remodeling. Hawthorne Hills, as you might know, Hawthorne Hills is at the end of a road. Very difficult for traffic flow. So we've been working with the city on potentially adding a new road and improving traffic flow, adding that safe and secure entrance and doing some renovations. Hewitt, Texas just needs some renovations and again, a little work on traffic flow. John Marshall, old building, sturdy building. Needs some significant remodeling, but otherwise a good solid building, and there would be again a new bus lane to improve that traffic flow. We talked about the Montessori building. It would be designed specifically to meet the requirements of the Montessori learning model. Maine, we talked about separating gymnasiums and cafeterias. This would be a new gymnasium and then a few other learning spaces, and again some remodeling and additional parking and new playgrounds. We haven't invested in a plan for the Grant Lincoln School. We won't invest in that detailed plan until the community says that we should be building that new school. So we really just have concepts at this point. Rib Mountain was another school that needed a new gymnasium, some additions, a secure entrance, and some renovations, and I've been here many days during pickup and drop-off. This will be welcomed by parents and staff. Riverview, again, good solid school. Needs a more secure entrance, a couple of additions, and some renovations, and again, some improved playground spaces. South Mountain, one of the schools that we projected to be growing in the future, so you'll see some additions, and again, a new gymnasium. And some parking. Satine was the other school that we projected some growth. Here are the additions, some new parking, some renovations. And Thomas Jefferson, again, wonderful school, just really needs some renovations, playground, and a little security work up here. Horace Mann, gorgeous school, just needs some renovations, some remodeling, a little addition off the back. John Muir, that's been in the news quite a bit. John Muir needs more work than many of our schools. Again, you can see the green areas are additions, the blue are remodels, significant work on traffic flow. Again, we're already working with the city to make this safer, but significant parking, potentially a new road coming out over on this side. East High, another gorgeous building, just needs a little work on the main office and a few other smaller items. West needs some work. Frankly, it's not the time, but we are going to make sure that that entrance is safe and secure, and then remodel a few areas inside. As you've heard, this has been a long project in development. It's also going to be several years in implementation. If you approve this, this is a 3 to 4 year project. And you can, again, at your leisure, look at some of the more detailed aspects of this over the years. And so questions. You probably have some questions. If you log on to our website, we have a frequently asked questions sheet. If you aren't able to get your answers there, I would encourage you to speak to a principal of your school or contact me or anybody here at the district office, and we can get you the answers that you need to make an informed decision. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I want to thank Mrs. White and Mr. Tess for adding their collective knowledge to this project. And we want to thank you and the staff for helping us develop this project over the last 2 to 3 years and sharing your hopes and dreams with us. And we hope that this project will help us realize those. Thank you.